Welcome back to the Coach McVay Show, everyone. With Sean McVay, I am JB Long, and the Coach McVay Show is always presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. The winning streak is snapped at 6, but the Rams are 9-3, tied atop the NFC, 5 to play, and everything to play for.
Yep.
Welcome back to Los Angeles. Hope you had a good holiday weekend. Sorry it didn't go your way yesterday, but I think we all noticed a bit of a measured reaction from you and your locker room. What was behind that kind of the poise with which you handled that defeat?
Well, I think there's just a lot of belief in this group, and I think it was pretty straightforward. I don't believe for a second that our preparation wasn't right, that we took them lightly. There was just a couple things that, when you look at what we've done at a really high clip, those things weren't on display yesterday. And like I said, you give Carolina credit for making some of those plays, but we've been really good about taking the football away, taking care of it. You're down 3 in the turnover battle. They made some critical fourth down conversions, 2 of which that ended up leading to touchdowns. They had a long explosive touchdown on a screen, and then we give them points on one of our turnovers where they go the other way. But I love the fight. I love the resilience of this group, and sometimes these setbacks can be great setups for comebacks. And I know that we've got the right guys in that locker room, the right coaches to be able to handle a little bit of adversity the right way. And there's never a good story without a little bit of adversity. It wasn't anything about measured. It was just what I authentically felt. I'm always going to be real to our group. And I think it's really important for us to use this for what it is. It's a learning opportunity. We're going to be able to respond. And that's exactly what I've seen from the guys right after the game, going into today. As you look at it and you have the security and the humility to be able to acknowledge where can we all collectively improve, but how can we stay tight and connected and use this as a chance to be able to grow from, and that's what we're going to do.
Hearing you say that, I wonder, when I read or hear a sentiment along the lines of the Rams needed to lose that game because, however you want to finish that sentence, does that mesh with what you just said and felt?
Here's what I would say. We didn't go out there with the expectation other than to try to win the football game. But what happened was we came up short. And so now, hey, you own it, you acknowledge it, you acknowledge that it doesn't feel great, but then you're not going to stay in those feelings. You're going to move forward the right way. And so we don't have control over that. That is over with. It's done with. But what we do have control with is our response, our vibe, our ability to inspire the right kind of responses collectively as a group and be able to have the right sense of urgency, but not lose sight of this enjoyment that we've had. We don't need to make stuff up. We need to look at what it is that we didn't do at the levels that we're accustomed to and be able to say these are usually good factors that give you good, predictive outcomes for getting the results that we want and that we've seen the last 6 weeks before yesterday.
And I think fans that love the Rams understand this process is already underway, but this is a different Monday than the victory Mondays we've become accustomed to over the last couple of months. Your schedule looks different today. You've already met, you've already lifted. That's Arizona week underway already.
That's right. And I think it's important that, you don't change, but you make sure that, hey, let's address the things that are important to be able to address. Let's put this game to bed. Let's acknowledge where we're headed, where we want to be able to go. I've gotten the right sense from our guys. And so the only thing is there was a little bit more intentionality about being able to look at the film and guys are secure enough to be able to handle that. And there's coach, us as coaches, we're all in it together. And that was what the different approach was. But there's a consistency in terms of whether we win or whether we lose. You correct the things that we want to be able to correct, and you try to be able to stack good plays, good days, and that's what we're going to do.
Some of those uncharacteristic things you talked about. You turned it over 3 times, can't get off the grass defensively, and still you put up 28, almost 7.5 yards per play.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the mix of the uncharacteristic but also encouraging?
Yeah, it was a unique deal. I mean, it'll go down in the stats as 9 drives. You really have 8 drives, one of which was a knee, the 6th drive at the end of the first half. You go right down the field, excellent return by Ronnie Rivers. You score in 6 plays. Then you get the ball back. You go right down the field. You get a tipped pick that ends up, where you don't come away with any sort of points. Then we have 4-play drive, I think it was, where you end up getting a pick the other way. Then you go back down and you score a touchdown, and then you score another touchdown, and there's your 5 real drives in the first half. In the third quarter, offensively, we had a tough time getting off the grass. They started with it, had a 3-play sequence where the rain was coming down, had a first down play where we got, good 5-yard run. And then they did a good job of bringing a pressure that they ended up getting a sack, put us in a negative yardage where we're 3rd and 13. And the rain was coming down hard to convert. And then those are your only drives. And then you see, a drive where you score. It was a great job where we leaned on the run and went almost 90 yards to be able to go get the touchdown. And then you go right down the field and we kind of have that little sequence at the end. But defensively, we battled. They ended up making, enough plays that we talked about. But I love this football team. I love what these guys are about, and I wouldn't want to be in the foxhole with any other group. And my feelings about this group is even stronger because I think sometimes, success is never linear. And if you have the right kinds of people and you can really look at what really occurred and you don't let your feelings get in the way of what really went down and then how do we correct it and how do we move forward, we got the right kind of guys to do that, and that's our job, and that's what we're tasked to do.
That third quarter must have been excruciating on your sideline for all those reasons that you described. Is there a blueprint there for opponents of the Rams, which is not to say that it's easily replicated, but that keep away works against this Matthew Stafford-led offense?
Yeah, what I think they did a good job of, they converted. They got to third and manageables. They were able to get, some third down runs where they stayed on the field. They weren't shying away. I mean, every earned first down, they were running the football, especially in the second half, I want to say. But you could feel that, and it wasn't anything too crazy, but it was 4 and 5, and then they were able to convert, on some of the conversion downs. They made the plays, and then, some of those explosives that we talked about, ended up being the difference. But our guys stayed in the fight. They continued the battle. I refused to believe that anything was going to happen other than us finding a way. And we came up a little bit short, but this isn't something that we haven't been able to handle. We've had 2 gut-wrenching losses before this. It led to some really good stuff, and these are things that our guys are well equipped to be able to handle, and you better be able to handle it because, like I said, success is never linear. This is a long journey, and we got a lot of football left, and we can't allow the Panthers game, to affect us where we lose twice because of it.
Ahkello Witherspoon in his return played 15 snaps. We were all curious to see when and where he would play. What was your vantage point on how he contributed in his return from injured
I thought he did a good job. Didn't have a whole lot of action. The one screen that they ended up throwing on the 3rd down and 8 where they ended up, having a explosive touchdown. He'll be the first to tell you he can be better in terms of block destruction, getting off. But with the other snaps, I thought he did his role.
And Emmanuel Forbes has rightly deserved commendation on this show and elsewhere. Seemed like a tough day at the office for him yesterday. Is that fair to say?
There was a couple plays where you're highlighted. You're at the point of attack on those 4th down plays. And, did a good job. Coker had a nice release on the 4th down where they ended up hitting the fade. He can be better in terms of his leverage and being able to win. And then on the other one that they ended up hitting, T-Mac on, it was a pretty good throw and catch, a little bit longer developing based on the defense that we were in and kind of the play that they activated. And they made a good play right there, but he's in good phase. Those are easy corrections. When you're a corner, you better be well equipped to be able to move forward and handle it. And you're put in some challenging situations. Those are hard downs for him, but he's played a lot of really good football, and he'll respond. And if you don't have a short memory as a DB, it's going to be a short career, and he's built to be able to move forward the right way, and we have a lot of belief and trust in him.
We also always talk about rush and cover working in tandem, and maybe yesterday it didn't quite the way you had hoped. External surfaces, Sean, have noticed a drop-off in pass rush win weight, say since like the bye, maybe the last handful of games. Does that check out with what you're seeing internally too, and is anything there?
I think yesterday they did a good job. They were, you felt like you were minimizing the rush ops. Ball was coming out. Even on the 4th down, we were in, a simulated pressure, and they kind of rolled out to the side of the droppers. So the things are extended on that. They got the ball up and down on the one that, and they're throwing screens, So there was a couple instances where you give them credit for some of the things that they had, but I don't get too caught up in those types of things. You got to earn the right to be able to rush the quarterback. There was a lot of pretty cool examples of that coming to life just 7 days prior. And so, we can't allow one game to shape the narrative, but you also can't ignore some of the things that we have to improve on collectively as a team.
Yeah, collectively is the word, because individually there were likes a Braden Fisk, who seems to have, I don't know if it's a return to health or performance, but his last couple of games have looked like what we come to expect from Braden Fisk.
That's right. I think he's been active. I think he's done a good job of being able to get some quick wins. He'll be the first to tell you want to be able to bring him down on the one that he had earlier in the game, but I think he's playing well, and the competitive character of this group is the right group. I have zero doubt about that, and there'll be some things that, just technically, fundamentally, and really structurally overall for us as coaches that I think we can continue to help, put our guys in the right spots, and that's what we're tasked to do.
I haven't talked to you since Quentin Lake's procedure. How did that go, and what's like an updated horizon for a realistic return to performance?
It went well for him. I thought he did it was all things were really encouraging. Good. He's been around. He's been in good spirits. And the hope is if you earn the right to play afterwards, then he'll get a chance to be able to join us then. I don't know if the regular season is realistic for him, but if we are able to earn the right to play games after the 17, we're guaranteed. I think there's a chance he'll be back for those.
Great. All right, a couple of offensive offensive plays I did think were absolutely worth highlighting. Let's start in the second quarter if we can. You had a 2nd and 10 from your own 31, and it's the longest catch of Xavier Smith's career.
Yeah.
What went into that collective effort?
Well, this is a great job by him. Matthew being able to read the top shelf of the coverage. I thought it was good protection. It was an excellent blitz pickup by Kyron in this instance when they brought the inside backer, and Matthew put it up and down, and they didn't really play the top shelf of the coverage the way they wanted to. Got a little bit greedy, and Matthew made him pay, and it was an excellent throw and catch by them for 51.
You also referenced the long scoring drive you went on at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Blake Corum with a career-long 34-yard run. I think a lot of people noticed that Jordan Whittington compete on the edge, too.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, Blake did a great job. I think, we were really able to get good removal in the run game all day. I thought our backs ran through arm tackles. Blake's able to cut it back across the grain on the first play of that drive. And, you could see Jay Witt was in motion pre-snap. He ends up capping off and then going and getting another block when the ball wound back. And then, his celebration where he's pounding the ground and see how excited he was is one of my favorite things. But that's why, even though you have a setback yesterday, JB, guys like Jordan Whittington, Blake Corum, all the people that you're asking me about, you don't bet against these people. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to be in the foxhole with any other group, any other coaching staff. And I'm excited about seeing what we're about and how we respond because, when you're on a 6-game win streak, they don't need you as much. Those are easy things, but you learn about people when you do have a little bit of a challenge to navigate. And that's why I love this group. And there's a lot of guys that have shown that they're capable of being resilient, being mentally tough, being the things that we talk about. And here we are now in the midst of it. And let's be about it more than any words we can say. Seen is better than said.
As always, our film review is brought to you by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, where every day is game day. Wish it could have happened in a win, but man, that Puka catch was special. That was one for the highlight
That's
reel.
one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. I mean, it was unbelievable, and what a critical play. I mean, he's a freaking stud. What he does, with and without the football, and I just can't say enough about the competitive character of this group. But just willing yourself and. Unreal.
Not that he ever had bad hands, but from where he was as a rookie or even a sophomore to now, I don't think he gets enough credit for the improvement he's made with catch security.
Yeah, I think, he's got elite hands. He's always had that, but, sometimes the focus, the concentration, but the consistency of making it, and then those types of plays, those are where you just say, man, unbelievable job. Tip of the cap to you, my friend.
Have you ever had a game where you've been penalty-free until, the critical moment? Like, if I had said to you, you went on the road in the rain in Carolina and only took one 5-yard penalty, that's usually a winning formula.
Yeah, it is. But like what you talked about, some of the turnovers, the critical, conversion downs that we weren't able to get some of the stops that we've been accustomed to getting stops, that ended up being the difference. I think it's a tremendous tribute to our competitive character of our group to even be in that position to where you're really fully expecting to win that football game if we score on that sequence. They forced the turnover, so they made those types of plays. But there's a lot of stuff that you can build on. I refuse to just let whatever that outcome is dictate. It's an all or nothing. It's not a zero-sum game. You want to win the football game. I don't want people to get, I don't want that to get twisted or misunderstood. But there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of things that we can build on, and there's certainly things that we can improve upon, and that's what we'll do.
Matthew did take that delay, said it was on him, and he talked about the difference between 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 10 being a big deal. It absolutely makes a difference. But I think it also presents an interesting question, which is one that we've wrangled with a little bit throughout your career because you approach it somewhat differently than most, which is the timeout worth more than the yardage loss potentially?
Yeah.
What's your updated feeling on that?
In that particular situation, yes. And it was one of those deals that I'm always in tune. Matthew and I are so connected, and based on the regularity of kind of our formation, felt like we typically had we had enough time to be able to get up and operate. So sometimes I'm fixated. I'm always aware of what the play clock is, but you're also fixated on the defense. And in that particular situation, they were getting ready to bring a zero pressure. Liked what we had on right there, and then before you know it, you're like, oh man, how did that even happen? Because I'm in tune with it if you get things in late or there's a motion, but that wasn't something that we were thinking. It did feel like it was a pretty quick whistle because typically what you say is, all right, hey, you look at that play clock, it goes to zero, then your eyes flash back to the formation, and then that's when you end up throwing it. But hey, that's not my job to worry about those things. But if I was in tune with that, I would have used the timeout in that situation. Just didn't think that was something that needed to be aware of it. And it's a great learning op for all of us.
That's interesting to hear you say it because having it did allow you to get one more defensive stop. It didn't happen, but having that timeout plus the 2-minute warning is kind of the argument for, hey, let's save those for moments that can maybe give us one more possession. Whereas I think your argument, and you articulate it better than I can, is if I can get it right in that moment and that can translate to points, I want to spend that timeout on offense.
100%. Because it's a one possession game at that point, and a touchdown takes the lead, a field goal ties it when it's a 31-28 game. And the difference between 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 10 in that particular instance, where you are on the field with points at stake, it's worth it to me there. And I always operate under the mindset we're going to convert. I'm using that timeout if I have to. We're converting on that. And maybe we would have even been in 4 downs. We would have potentially kicked a field goal. Obviously, in that situation, we don't turn it over, and it's a 3rd and 13 or 4th and 14. We'll kick the field goal based on where we were. But I would have used it in that instance. And every opportunity in every game, whether you end up winning or losing, those are learning ops, and those are things that you say, let's make sure that how we would handle it. All right, if it comes up again, what's going to be the best thing for the collective, and that's the approach. And maybe people would disagree with me, but that was what we felt like would have been the right approach in that particular instance.
It does remind me of a debate that was raging around the Thanksgiving Black Friday dinner table, which you may have seen, whether or not to go for 2 down 9, like the Eagles had in that Black Friday game. Where do you come out on that?
I'm definitely not going for 2 there.
You're not going for 2 before you need to.
But there's analytics would tell you want to know what you need to be able to get. I just am such a big believer that in momentum, you're going to have to get it at one point, but I'd rather keep it at a 1-possession game, than make it a 2-possession game. But the Eagles are one of the teams that handle those situations excellent, and so I think there would be people that could make a very sound argument, but when you don't convert, what that does in terms of the momentum and the vibe, I think that's something that's hard to be able to measure, even though you know what are the specifics. But I think the amount of time left in the game, the amount of possessions you're guaranteed, what's the flow of the game, those are all factors in it. But you certainly know you're going to have to get a 2-point at some point. But I would have, in that instance, our approach would be to kick that field goal. But I'm very well aware that there are analytics and models that tell you that you'd rather know beforehand. And I totally respect and understand that as well.
Finally, a couple personnel things. In the current schematic where you're activating more tight ends, which has been immensely successful, Ronnie is signed for special teams, and my goodness, that kick return was a big lift. And you have needs across your secondary. I think people are wondering, okay, where does Tutu fit into this as he gets back to health? What's the thought for the week ahead?
Still working through that. Those are the things that as we dive into Arizona, obviously we're better when we can figure out a way to be able to get him involved. But there are layers to it. Some of which, he has no control over relative to just the teams and the overall factors in terms of what personnels and things of that nature. So these are positive problems for us to be able to figure out, but we love Tutu, and those are things that, those are the hard challenges that you have to be able to work through as a coaching staff.
And the way the schedule shakes out is interesting. You have a division rival that you haven't seen all the way to December, and now you play him twice in the final 5 games with everything in front of you, Sean. What's that like?
What it's like is it's our next game. And a lot of respect for this opponent. Obviously, it was a humbling experience when we went there last year in week 2, but there's a lot of things that have gone on since then. But, what I'm most interested in is our group having the resolve, the response that's in alignment with, allowing us to go play our best football and doing those things that are necessary, that when that game is kicked off, our week of preparation gave us the best chance to be able to bring it to life for our players and be able to handle the ebbs and flows, and that's what we're going to do.
Can't wait to see the Rams get back to their winning ways and all the things that have led to those positive outcomes. Thanks for your time, as always, on this Monday, Sean.
Appreciate you, man.
Good to be with you. And the Coach McVay Show is presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot plus PC.